In the shadow of the Taygetus Mountains, where the earth bleeds red beneath the sun, a city was carved from stone, sweat, and the will of gods. They called it Sparta, and from its heart, men were not born, they were forged. Sparta was unlike any other cradle of Greece. While Athens sang songs of philosophy and art, while Corinth traded gold and silk, Sparta worshipped only one god, war. For in the eyes of Sparta, peace was merely the silence between battles. Here, a boy's first breath was a promise to defend the city, to obey without question, and to die with honor. If his cry was weak, if his body small, he would not see another dawn. Sparta had no mercy for the frail, for weakness was the seed of ruin. At the age of 7, a child was taken from his mother's arms and cast into the agoge, the crucible of Spartan life. There, softness was burned away. Pain was a teacher, hunger a friend, and fear a chain to be shattered. They learned to steal, but if caught, they were punished, not for stealing, but for failing to hide it. They learned to fight, not for victory, but for survival. And they learned that a Spartan stands not as one, but as all. When winter froze the rivers and the wolves howled from the hills, the boys huddled in silence, sharpening sticks into spears. They whispered names of heroes, Heracles, Achilles, men who had looked death in the eye and smiled. And in those dark nights, a legend began to stir, the story of a boy who would one day lead them all. His name was Leonidas. Born the son of a king, but raised as a soldier among soldiers, Leonidas was not spared the trials of the agoge. He slept on reeds like the rest, ate the same meager bread, felt the same cold bite of winter on his skin. For in Sparta, blood meant nothing. Only courage spoke. He learned to fight with his body, his mind, his silence, to strike without mercy, to endure without complaint, and to speak with deeds, not words. When he fell, he rose. When he bled, he smiled. And when his brothers broke, he stood, a rock amid the storm. By the time he reached manhood, Leonidas had seen death more times than he had seen dawn. He had buried comrades, slain rivals, and stared into the abyss of his own fear until nothing stared back. In that emptiness, he found his strength. And Sparta saw it too. On the day he took his oath as a warrior, he knelt before the altar of Artemis Orthia, the goddess of the hunt and pain. The priestess cut his palm, and his blood fell onto the cold stone. She whispered, "You are no longer your own. You belong to Sparta." Leonidas rose, his eyes burning with something unspoken, not pride, not ambition, but purpose. From that day forth, he was a guardian of the gates. To be Spartan was to understand that life was fleeting, but honor eternal. A Spartan did not ask how many enemies stood before him, but only where they were. For retreat was not in their tongue, surrender not in their blood. The rhythm of the Spartan heart was the rhythm of discipline. Each beat echoed the code engraved in their souls, with your shield or on it. They were taught that the shield was not for the self, it was for the man beside you. To lose it was to endanger the line. To break formation was to betray your brothers. And so, unity became their weapon, obedience their armor, and death their inheritance. Years passed, and Leonidas became more than a warrior. He became a leader, not through birthright, but through the fire of loyalty. He was not the loudest, nor the cruelest, but when he spoke, men listened. For he spoke not from pride, but from truth. He had bled as they had bled. He had endured what they had endured. And in the silence between battles, they saw in him a reflection of their own struggle. Sparta's strength was not its walls, for there were none. Its defense was its people. Every man, a soldier. Every woman, the mother of warriors. They raised their sons with a single command: return with your shield or on it. In this city of iron hearts, Leonidas grew to embody what Sparta worshipped: restraint, honor, and defiance. He learned that victory was not measured in trophies, but in endurance, the ability to stand unbroken when all else falls. Yet beyond the mountains, across the Aegean Sea, another power was rising. A power vast as the horizon, golden as the sun itself, Persia. Led by kings who claimed descent from the gods, their empire stretched from the Indus to the Nile, and their eyes had turned toward Greece. Whispers came to Sparta, of cities burned, of armies that blotted out the land like a plague of locusts. Some called it destiny, others doom. But Leonidas called it what it truly was, a test. In the quiet before the storm, he would often walk alone atop the cliffs of Taygetus. There, beneath the cold stars, he would watch the valley below, his home, his duty. He knew what was coming. He knew that the fire that had forged him since birth would soon be needed again, not just to defend Sparta, but to defend freedom itself. And so began the turning of fate. A world prepared for war. A king prepared for sacrifice. For when the might of empires falls upon you, when shadows darken the land, and when all seems lost, there will always rise one man, one voice, one stand, to remind the world what it means to be free. And in that time, his name will echo through eternity, Leonidas of Sparta. Far beyond the mountains of Greece, across deserts scorched by the sun, and rivers heavy with the weight of empires, another power was rising, Persia. Vast, unyielding, unstoppable. An empire built on gold, iron, and ambition, stretching from the Indus to the Nile, from the sands of Arabia to the frozen shores of the Black Sea. The kings of Persia called themselves divine. They claimed descent from the gods, yet their divinity was measured not in wisdom or honor, but in conquest. Their eyes turned westward, toward the lands of city-states, toward the small specks of freedom that dared to rise against the tide of their dominion. King Xerxes, the shadow of Darius, ascended to the throne with a singular vision: to crush Greece, to bend it beneath his will, and to erase the defiance of men who dared call themselves free. He gathered a host unlike any seen in the world. A sea of warriors so vast it seemed the earth itself would not contain them. Soldiers, archers, cavalry, chariots, each one a fragment of an unstoppable force, each step of their march shaking the soil, each drumbeat echoing doom across the horizon. Word of Persia's march reached the ears of every city in Greece. Panic spread like wildfire. Athens fortified its walls, Corinth called for allies, the islands prepared their fleets. But Sparta remained unmoved. Its people did not tremble, nor did they plead for mercy. They only sharpened their spears, readied their shields, and whispered the name of their king, Leonidas. Leonidas understood the enormity of what approached. He had trained for this moment since he drew his first breath, since the agoge molded him into steel. But even he could not ignore the shadow that stretched across the land. Persia was not merely an army, it was a force of nature. And yet, in that overwhelming tide, he saw a truth that would guide him, as it had guided every Spartan before him. Courage was stronger than fear, unity stronger than numbers, and honor stronger than death. He convened his council of elders, his warriors, and the few allies who had answered Sparta's call. Their discussion was brief, their decision unwavering. They would not flee. They would not surrender. They would hold the narrow pass at Thermopylae, where the mountains met the sea, where thousands could be held at bay by a few. As Leonidas walked among his men, he observed the young warriors who would follow him into the storm. He saw the same fire he had carried within himself, the same unspoken promise etched into their hearts. They did not ask how many enemies lay before them. They did not measure the risk. They only knew the code: with your shield or on it. Beyond the horizon, Persia's army moved like a living tide. Their march was relentless, their supplies endless, their ambition infinite. Cities fell before them, one by one. Smoke rose from villages, and screams of the conquered pierced the wind. Yet in Sparta, there was only preparation, only resolve, only the quiet determination of men who understood that the true battle was not against an army, but against the erosion of freedom itself. Persia's generals underestimated the Spartans. They believed that numbers alone would secure victory, that courage was a fleeting candle easily snuffed out by the storm of steel. But they had not seen Sparta. They had not seen Leonidas. They had not seen the fire that burned in a man who had been forged by pain, honed by discipline, and tempered in the shadow of death. The world watched as the stage was set. Across the lands, messengers carried news of the impending clash. Some whispered of doom, others of legend. But the truth was simple: Thermopylae would be the proving ground. There, a handful of men would stand against an empire. There, a king would confront fate itself. And Leonidas, son of Sparta, warrior of the agoge, guardian of the gates, prepared to etch his name into eternity. For Persia, he was a challenge to be crushed. For Sparta, he was the shield that would hold the line. For the world, he was a symbol of what it meant to resist, to endure, and to fight, even when all hope seemed lost. The winds of destiny howled across the mountains. The sea whispered of coming blood. And in the heart of Sparta, Leonidas stood tall, his eyes fixed on the horizon, knowing that soon the world would bear witness to the courage of a few against the might of many. He did not fear Persia. He did not fear death. He feared only that men might forget what it meant to be free. And that fear was enough to steel his resolve, sharpen his blade, and ignite the hearts of every warrior who would stand beside him. The rise of Persia had begun, and the fire of Sparta was ready to meet it. The land of Greece held its breath as Leonidas and his warriors marched toward the narrow pass of Thermopylae. The mountains rose like jagged teeth, guarding the route between the sea and the hills, a place where the might of numbers could be rendered meaningless. Every step, every mile, brought them closer to destiny. Sparta had sent only a fraction of its army, yet each man carried within him the weight of the city's honor. Behind them lay families, temples, and generations of warriors. Before them lay a storm of steel, a tide of Persia that sought to wash away all that was free. And yet, the Spartans moved with unwavering purpose. They did not speak of fear, nor did they speak of death. They spoke only of their duty, and of the shield that must not fall. Leonidas rode at the front, not as a king, but as one among many, a leader whose presence demanded courage. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, scanned the horizon. He saw the villages they passed, the farmers hiding their children, the olive trees bending under the weight of the wind. All of it was fragile, fleeting, and precious, and he vowed silently that it would not fall without a fight. The journey was long. The sun scorched their shoulders, and the nights were bitterly cold. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, yet not a man faltered. Every step was a lesson in endurance, every mile a testament to their discipline. They trained even as they marched, testing their spears against trees, against rocks, against each other. Every man knew that soon, the enemy would test them in the truest crucible of all. Along the way, allies joined them. From other Greek city-states came men willing to fight, willing to die alongside Sparta. Though smaller in number, they brought strength in spirit, in resolve. Leonidas welcomed them, yet he did not underestimate the challenge. Persia's army would not be held back by courage alone. Strategy, cunning, and unity would be required, and he would demand nothing less than perfection. At night, under the stars, Leonidas would walk among his men, speaking quietly to those who sought guidance. He told them of the history of Sparta, of the kings and heroes who had come before. He reminded them that Thermopylae was more than a battle. It was a stand for the freedom of all Greece, a stand against the darkness that sought to consume them. As they neared the pass, scouts returned with reports. The Persian host was vast beyond imagining, their numbers stretching like a living river across the plains. Cavalry thundered in the distance, chariots glinting in the sun, archers poised to darken the skies with death. The sheer magnitude of it could have broken any ordinary army. But not this one. Not Sparta. Leonidas addressed his men for the final time before the gates of Thermopylae. He did not speak of victory, for victory was uncertain. He spoke of courage. He spoke of honor. He spoke of the legacy they would leave, not for themselves, but for all who would come after. Remember who you are, he said. Remember why you stand. This is not for gold, not for fame, not for life itself. This is for Greece. This is for Sparta. This is for the men beside you and the sons who will follow. Stand and let the world remember the courage of the few against the many. The men gripped their shields tighter. Their spears gleamed in the sunlight. And in the silence that followed, a single thought bound them all together. They would hold the pass, no matter the cost. Thermopylae awaited, a narrow ribbon of land between the mountains and the sea. It was a place where courage could match numbers, where skill could rival size, where the spirit of a few could challenge the might of many. And as Leonidas and his warriors stepped into the pass, they knew the world was watching. The march had ended. The stand was about to begin, and history would be written in blood and fire. For Leonidas, for Sparta, for freedom itself, the battle was no longer a question of if, they were already in it. And the shadow of Persia would soon collide with the unyielding fire of Sparta. Thermopylae lay before them, a narrow ribbon of land flanked by cliffs on one side and the relentless sea on the other. The air was thick with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the drum of destiny. Leonidas surveyed the pass, the spears of his men glinting like a forest of steel, the shields overlapping in perfect formation. They were few, yet unyielding. They were Sparta. Across the plain, the Persian army advanced. Its numbers were incomprehensible, stretching beyond the horizon, an ocean of soldiers, cavalry, and chariots. Dust rose in clouds, and the sun shone through a haze of golden bronze, turning the ground into fire. Xerxes himself watched from his throne on a hill, confident that such strength would crumble beneath the weight of an empire. But Leonidas did not falter. He understood the truth that Sparta had taught him since birth. Courage, discipline, and unity could resist what seemed impossible. He turned to his men. Remember who you are. Remember why you stand. Hold the line, and hold it well. Let no man pass. Let no shame touch Sparta. The first wave of Persians struck. They came like a river, surging forward, hoping to overwhelm by sheer mass. Spears clashed against shields, metal screamed against metal, and the cries of men filled the air. Yet the Spartans held. Step by step, wall by wall, they met the onslaught, unbroken and resolute. Leonidas moved among them, his presence a living symbol of defiance. Where he struck, men followed. Where he held, men stood. He was more than a king. He was the heart of Sparta, beating in rhythm with every soldier beside him. Day turned to night, and still they fought. The mountains themselves seemed to lean in, witnessing a courage that would be sung of for generations. The Persians pressed again and again, but the pass was narrow, and there, the might of numbers was less than the will of the few. Each Spartan's shield absorbed blows, each spear found its mark, each man fought not for glory, but for the life of the city behind him. Xerxes grew impatient. He sent wave after wave, men and beasts alike, to break the line. Yet Leonidas' strategy, honed by discipline and courage, held firm. The Spartans moved as one, a single unyielding force. Their formation was a blade, and the enemy, no matter how vast, could not bend it. But even the bravest hearts are tested. Betrayal crept through the mountains, a hidden path revealed to the Persians. Leonidas knew what this meant. They would soon be surrounded. Yet he did not waver. He called his closest allies, the Thespians, and the few who had pledged to die at his side, and prepared them for the inevitable. "Stand your ground," he said. "Sparta does not falter. Sparta does not flee. And Sparta will not surrender." The final waves came. The air was thick with arrows, the ground slick with blood. Men fell on both sides, yet the line held. Leonidas fought at the forefront, his spear striking with precision, his shield absorbing blow after blow. Around him, his warriors became more than men. They became legends. Every motion, every strike, every breath was an act of defiance against fate itself. The sun rose on the third day, casting a red light over the battlefield. Only a handful of men remained at the pass, yet still they stood. Leonidas looked out over the advancing Persians, knowing that death was near, yet unafraid. He had trained for this moment since his first day in the Agoge. He had been forged in fire and pain, tempered in discipline, and sharpened by honor. He raised his voice, a roar that cut through the chaos, reaching the ears of every Spartan who survived. "Fight! For your brothers! For your city! For Sparta!" The men surged forward one last time, a tidal wave of courage, facing impossible odds. Their spears struck, their shields held, their will remained unbroken. And though death surrounded them, and the enemy pressed on every side, they became more than warriors. They became the embodiment of defiance. Leonidas fell that day, surrounded by his men, yet his spirit never broke. His stand at Thermopylae would echo through history, a beacon of courage and honor for all who followed. And though the Persian tide swept across the land, it could not drown the legend of a king who stood, unflinching, in the face of annihilation. The world remembered that day, not for the blood spilled, not for the ground taken, but for the courage of a few against the many. For in the fire of Thermopylae, the heart of Sparta burned brighter than any empire, and the name of Leonidas became eternal. The mountains of Thermopylae fell silent. The battle had ended, yet its echo would endure for eternity. The sands were stained red, the air heavy with the scent of iron and sacrifice. But beyond the carnage, beyond the loss, a story had been written, a story not of defeat, but of courage that defied the impossible. Leonidas' body had fallen, yet his spirit remained unbroken. His stand was not measured in the ground he held, for the pass would ultimately be overrun. It was measured in the hearts he ignited, in the courage he inspired, and in the truth he revealed, that freedom is never granted. It is claimed, defended, and, if necessary, paid for with the blood of the brave. Across Greece, his name traveled on the wind. From the halls of kings to the humble homes of farmers, from temples to marketplaces, men spoke of the king who had stood at the hot gates, who had faced the might of an empire and refused to yield. They told of a handful of warriors who, against impossible odds, had carved a place in eternity. They told of Sparta, a city that did not bend, and a king who became its eternal soul. The Persian army, vast and victorious, could claim the land, but not the spirit of the people. For the story of Thermopylae became more than a tale of battle, it became a symbol that courage can defy numbers, that honor can outlast death, that one man's stand can echo through generations. Leonidas' legacy lived on in every Spartan who took up a shield, in every city-state that resisted tyranny, and in every heart that understood the cost of freedom. He became more than a king. He became a myth, a legend, a guiding flame. His courage was a mirror reflecting the potential of all who would dare to stand against oppression. The women of Sparta remembered him. The children of Greece remembered him. And the sons of warriors who had fought beside him carried his name forward, telling stories of his valor around fires and in halls, inspiring generations to rise, to resist, and to fight for what they held dear. Even centuries later, when empires rose and fell like the tides, the memory of Leonidas endured. He taught the world that greatness is not in numbers, not in gold, not in titles, but in the spirit of those who refuse to bow. He taught that courage is contagious, and that a single act of defiance can shape the destiny of nations. Sparta survived, as did the dream of freedom. And though the hot gates were a place of blood and death, they became a monument to bravery, a testament to the unbreakable will of men who understood the meaning of sacrifice. The story of Thermopylae is not merely history, it is a lesson. It is a call to stand, to endure, to fight when all seems lost. It is a reminder that even in the shadow of overwhelming power, courage and honor can shine brighter than any empire. Leonidas of Sparta, the king who faced the storm, who stood unyielding against the tide of Persia, became eternal. His name was carved not only into stone and story, but into the soul of humanity itself. For as long as men dream of freedom, as long as warriors walk the earth, the fire of Leonidas will burn. And in that fire, the world remembers, freedom is never given. It is defended. It is earned. It is worth every drop of blood. And thus, the legacy of Leonidas endures, not as a man who fell, but as a king who stood.